Hi, I'm McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're talking about how to deal with a jealous partner. Real Story Unpacked. We have a story on deck that was sent into writemac.com. If you have a story you want to share, send it into writemac.com, and we can book a live coaching session or unpack it like this. So just to get started, we have some points in the comments that I've already shared. So number one, to start with, is the jealousy warranted? So what does that mean? So have you actually crossed a line? So for example, someone accuses you in your relationship of doing something or doing something wrong. Do you find it warranted? So B, who's on deck right now, do you understand what I mean by that question?
Yeah.
So to start with, number one, when you're dealing with a jealous partner, individually, what you're getting accused of, because a lot of times it's accusational. Like, I know you were checking her out.
Right.
Or she knows what she was. Jealousy can come in two parts. Your partner can be angry at the other person
And lash out at you a bit, right?
Yeah, like, oh, you didn't push her away.
Right.
Or your partner could be angry at you that you've been putting off the vibe. Right. Now, my point is, you need to come back to yourself and go, yeah, I can see where she was coming from. I am a bit of a flirt sometimes. Right. And you got to also understand your partner. Are they more sensitive to that stuff?
Sure.
Are they more keyed into that? Right. So that's number one. Individually based is the individual thing that you're getting accused of doing. And a lot of times, like I said, it's like, oh, I know you posted that picture for attention. You're smiling right now. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's what you meant. And you're like, no, I didn't. Now, in private, ask yourself honestly, what were my intentions in posting that picture with my shirt off to my group, right? And you might say to yourself, yeah, actually, I was looking for attention. Or, yeah, I was actually looking for Rye Flint's attention. Or I was like, to yourself, when you ask yourself that question, you're like, yeah, she was right. I kind of was looking for it.
All right.
And your partner, if you're together long enough and you live together, they know you.
They'll feel it. Yeah.
They know you. What's up, Sam Lujan? Welcome. I actually had a friend with the last name Lujan, really good friend of mine. I don't know if that's your real last name, because a lot of people use,
Whatever.
And maybe it's Lou Jan, but Lujan. But this is a really good check for you if you're getting accused of something, right? Is the jealousy warranted? Are you flirting a lot? Are you wearing scarce clothing repeatedly? Now, here's the thing. If you dressed a certain way with a lot of cleavage, and that could be for men or women, right? If you dressed a certain way or something like that, what's your intention, right? And were you like that already? So what you want to do is seek to understand rather than be understood. Because what you're going to do, I wasn't talking to her. I didn't mean anything by that. Take a step aside when you have some private time and ask yourself this. What were my real intentions? Was I trying to flirt a little bit? I'll be honest. Personally, I flirt a little bit. I'm friendly. I'm outgoing. It's harmless. It can be misconstrued.
Misconstrued as flirting.
But I have a line. I've never had a situation with a girlfriend where I embarrassed her. Like, I've been in situations where I've had a girlfriend that drank a little too much and got a little too friendly around friends. Now, did she cross the line and go home with one of them? No. But was there some dirty dancing on the dance floor at some point? It was questionable, right? It's like, wait, whoa. Now, she might just go, oh, I was drinking. That's why. But, so there's variables involved. Is the jealousy warranted on both ends? Because there's sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm fucking jealous, but there's a reason.
There's a real reason behind it, yeah.
Like one of them, a client of mine just had where he was like, we were at a cocktail party. He's a professional, higher status job. She's a professional. And so he said he comes over and she's talking to a guy at the party and he's just being ignored by both of them.
He's just the wingman that's sitting
Yeah,
there.
like, and this is his girlfriend of
Right.
3 years. He's like, you know, and so he said he kind of jumped in the conversation and said something, and the guy looked at him like, and kept talking to the girl, his girlfriend.
Right. Yeah.
So in that situation, is the jealousy warranted? Yeah, somewhat.
Mhm.
But I would also say, like, at some point, your girlfriend should say, "This is Al,
This is my boyfriend.
John.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I work with." Like, introduce him and say, "This is my boyfriend. This is my fiance. This is my husband." That's just proper to me.
Sure.
If you're not getting introduced, that's bad. I don't know if that's jealousy or just bad form, or
Maybe a little bit of both.
yeah, bad etiquette
Right.
in a relationship, right?
Mhm.
So, have you actually crossed a line is the next question. Have you crossed the line as the accusationer, right? Have you crossed a line and said, I know is very different than I think. Usually you don't know much, right? This is why ask questions. So, have you actually crossed the line where you're like, yeah, I have been hooking up with so-and-so, or I did give them my number and I know they like me, but I'm not going to do anything. I just want to flirt with them. That's a line that you crossed. Be honest. Now, at least start with being honest with yourself. Because a lot of times what people do, they're impulsive in relationships. So they just, in the moment, it's like, right? When you play sports, you have to impulsively react because you're in a game. You can't have time to think. When you step away, are you like, yeah, I know what I'm doing when I gave her my number at work. I actually do like her and find her attractive. Okay. Number 2, are stories being made up that you have to answer to? Now, your jealous partner creates a story and you're like, what?
Like, this is coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. I know that you're not with John because I drove by his house and both his cars are in the parking lot or in the driveway. I know you're not with him. We took a taxi, hon.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. Now that might seem like, oh yeah, and she thinks like, right? That's the kind of jealousy where you're creating stories because you just want to be right all the time and not asking questions or having the benefit of the doubt. That's a problem. Because those stories can get worse. They can get worse and worse. And when you're digging yourself out of a story that's not true, it's really uncomfortable because it's like anything you say can and will be held against you kind of a thing. And you're like, have you ever been accused of something you didn't do? Like you haven't, it's probably one of the worst things. Like, let's say you were in grade school or college or something and someone, like when I was a kid, it was before cell phones. So it was like, you remember like the cool calculators?
Yeah.
And I'm not into math, but you had to, you know what I'm talking about? The
like
scientific calculators?
The Texas Instruments ones.
Texas Instruments ones. You know where I'm coming from, right? So it's like, those were expensive too, right? Those would get nicked, right? Kids would steal them and stuff. It's like if someone accused you of doing that and you didn't do it, you're like, no, I didn't steal it. It's like, no, we know you took it. You get really fucking upset.
Right, because you know you didn't do it.
No, I saw you, Max, sitting by the kid's backpack. It's like, I didn't take it. You know, it's the same thing with jealousy. I didn't do that. If there's stories being created, very dangerous. Very dangerous because where does it end? Because they're going to create stories.
It's going to keep going, right?
And if they have no morals about their stories and they just want to be correct. Now, the people that create these stories, they're convinced that you're doing that and they want to be right. And the elaborates of the stories are bad, right? And you don't want to be accused of something you haven't done. So we'll circle back to that. And I have some stories of clients and what they've had to deal with that are pretty bad. In fact, there's one client that had where his friend had come to the house and the girlfriend knew his friend. It was a good friend of his, and he was away for a couple weeks. And of course, she was staying at his house. And this friend, he told him, if you need to stop by or you need a place to sleep one night, you can come by and use the house. Now, he probably made the wrong move there because the girlfriend of his was uncomfortable with that. And he was very vague with the friend. So the friend comes over and was at the house and he's talking to his girlfriend and he's going to take the couch for the night because he had some problems at home. Right? So she was really upset. Like, why would you let your friend stay at the house while I'm here? What's going on? She turned it into this big story that they had a gay relationship. Right? And he's like, whoa.
Like, what?
He's like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's my buddy. That's just not true.
Right.
And she's like, no, I know it's true. He told me. And it's like, he was like, I don't know what he told you because nothing ever happened. So
Right.
whatever you perceive to be true, it never happened.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I know everything. I know about it. That's a huge story. Now, the problem with that kind of story, it's funny. B's laughing about it, right?
It's a pretty big one, too.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, suddenly he's having to prove.
Right.
He's having to prove that he's not gay. And he's in a monogamous relationship where she sleeps with her.
Yeah.
Right. And she's like, oh, no, I know that. That's a good way for her to like. And then later on, he told me that she'd come back to it and be like, it's okay. I know. I let it go. Right.
Right. She just
now that's full manipulation because it's like, no, I've never been in a relationship. It's okay. I know. It's all right. I know about you too. I let it go. She refuses to give in to the fact that she created that story out of jealousy. Probably the fact that, she's not the only special one that gets to sleep at his house or use his house. Story had a little bit more to it, but you get the gist. Number 3, how far does it go? Which is a good segue from what I just said, right? How far does it go? There's kind of like an innocent jealousy where a partner can kind of admit, and usually with that, it's like, I know I'm just jealous.
Like I'm a jealous type of person.
Or, now when someone says I'm a jealous kind of person, they're saying that's who I am. That's a little bit dangerous in the sense that they somehow believe it's part of them. That's how things are.
With it. Yeah.
They think it's actually part of relationships. Like, in other words, it's showing how you care.
Like it's a healthy part of a relationship.
Right. It's like it's what you do when you care.
What you do. Yeah.
So, but like, how far does it go? If you on a scale of 1 to 10, like that story I just told you, that's a 10, right? It's like, whoa. Someone checking someone's cars when you say you're out with a buddy. And also I'd add, like, what have you done for them to mistrust you or be jealous of? Okay. What's at the core of the jealousy? So this is actually a really good question. This is a lot of my coaching. I'm going to just ask you a lot of good questions and then unpack, unlayer. It's not going to be like, hey, you got to do this. Hey, go into no contact for 30 days. This is all scaled information on YouTube now. This is what I'm going to tell you to do. You got to unblock and then block and then spend 30 days and then do this. No, it's what happened to you. If you're not getting tailored advice from someone and asking good questions, it's going to throw you in 15 different directions. Now, what's the core of the jealousy? Is it, I think you're going to cheat on me? Is it, you treat your friends too well and you don't treat me well? Is it money? I've seen this one many times. Someone, especially certain cultures, and we know this living in Thailand, B, Asian culture. I'm not going to speak for all of Asia, but Thailand, I've had a couple Asian girlfriends. They take care of their parents in a different way. Okay. Now, someone might say all of them. I won't speak for everyone, but they're more apt to send money to the family or take care of their parents in a different way. They're more obligated in that way. Not necessarily a bad thing, just a cultural thing. And so if they want to send their family money and that's foreign to you, you might get jealous, or they might get jealous of how you're spending your money that's not helping their family. Right. That's jealousy, right? So they'll create narratives or stories. Well, you spent money here and you're helping out a friend. So what's the core of the jealousy? Like, is that something you can deal with? A lot of times if someone's jealous of just you getting attention and you're a good-looking woman or a good-looking guy, sometimes you can live with that because you understand. And if you can't, I've talked to guys about this before. I'm like, if you're dating a highly attractive woman, you're going to have to deal with her getting attention. You're going to have to deal with that. creating situation. Oh, that's just what you like. Look, there's a reason why you liked her. Everyone sees what you see. Okay. So there's certain scenarios like that. Number 5, what was her parents' relationship like or his parents' relationship like? Okay. So a lot of times I don't like the term daddy issues because there's also something called mommy issues. Men have it quite a bit. Okay. So when you think that you're going to diagnose someone just because of their parents' relationship, I'm not telling you to go full in like, oh, attachment theory, narcissism, all this other stuff. I'm saying just take a quick look. Now, if dad cheated on mom or mom cheated on mom, there might be some jealousy just assuming that you're going to do the same thing. Or I never got a lot of attention from my dad. I lost him at a young age. So they're extremely clingy to you because their dad left when they were young. That's a possibility also. That's a big one. Someone that loses their father, at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, whether that's through divorce and they never talk again or passed away, those women tend to be a little bit more clingy, and they also tend to jump to conclusions when they think things are going wrong because things have gone wrong before. All right. Number 6, does he or she admit when they are wrong? This is huge. If someone can't admit when they get jealous, like, look, I was wrong. I overreacted. Like, I took it too far. And if you're suspicious, ask questions. Like, I noticed that you were talking to Kelly at the restaurant for a long time. What's that all about? Oh, it didn't mean anything. Actually, it doesn't mean. All right. I just want to double check. And look in their eyes, how they react to it. Now, here's the thing that people don't want to talk about. Usually, and I can't speak from experience because I'm not that age yet, but I probably when you get to like 65, 70, there's a lot less jealousy. Why do you think that would be, right? Like, think about that. If you've had great grandparents, I've been lucky enough to know my couple great grandparents that lived into their 80s and 90s. You've known people in their 60s and 70s in relationships. Do they get jealous with each other?
No.
B's just shaking his head like,
no. I mean, not that I really know of, but
I'm sure it's possible.
Sure yeah.
And I would say if the guy's 65 and the girl's 25, there's a lot of jealousy probably.
Maybe. Yeah.
You're laughing now because you're like, yeah, that's true, huh?
Yeah.
Now, why is that? It's less of a threat. There's less hormones.
Right.
But people don't realize this. Everyone's going to look at the menu. Right? I got the best girlfriend in the world. I got the best wife in the world. I'm highly attracted to my girlfriend. I'm highly attracted to my wife. Right? Some good-looking woman comes in the door. Me and B are having breakfast. Am I going to go, no, I can't look. Don't let me look, B. I'm married. It's like, no. What's going on in that guy's head? Nice. Right? Maybe he doesn't stare or anything. Women, I think, do the same thing in a different way. You're always checking the menu. It's just, what are you going to make an order on, right? And it's hard when you're eating the same thing on the menu every day, every night. No pun intended. Now, so you got to think, there's going to be some moments where you might get jealous and you might be suspicious. And if you're really keying in on your partner's face and focused at a restaurant or a bar, well, then control the environments better. If you guys go and hang out at bars and you're like, I can't believe it's like, I'll ask clients, where have you been hanging out? We were at the bar. Stop hanging out at the fucking bar with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Right. That's a busy bar where people meet singles. They're going to get hit on. Well, she should, like, can you hang out somewhere else? Mm-hmm. It's like, go hang out at a classier lounge then or something.
If you have to be at a bar.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. It's like, don't bring sand to the beach. Mm-hmm. You don't want to put yourself in those situations. Right? So, and communicate that they overreacted. So when you're dealing with a jealous partner, you need to tell them, like, you're overreacting. I didn't do anything wrong here. At some point, you're like, I didn't do anything wrong here. I'm not going to keep talking about this. I told you the truth. It's up to you what you want to do with that. Now, here's the big one, number 7. How often does it happen? If it's happening regularly, it's not going away. And there's going to be a big issue down the road, because what happens is you deal with it, you deal with it, you deal with it, you deal with it, you deal with it. It's like boiling water. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, why'd you get so upset? What's wrong? Why are you reacting? You must be doing something wrong. It's like, no, you fucking accused me like 7 times in the last month. And I let it go. I let it go. But what you didn't do is you didn't let it go. You just stored it. You put it in storage. Put it in storage. Right. And then when you're confronted with the next jealousy move, you're like, what the fuck? What the fuck? You know, you're like,
right. Just finally has like a tipping point.
Right?
Yeah.
What are the accusations? How deep are they? Whether they're small or big, how often they are counts. Mm-hmm. But what are the accusations? Lay them out. If you're dealing with a jealous partner, maybe write them out. Number 8, if this isn't going away, what's your tipping point? Great question. Like, what is it going to take for you to stop being accused of things?
To get you to that next level of upset or whatever?
Yeah, like you know, you go back to the stories that I just mentioned earlier, right? What if that individual that accuses you of, because there is a lot of jealousy in relationships of best friends.
Yeah, like you're taking time away from spending.
There's especially when you're very deep and intimate relationship. Mm-hmm. I've known a lot of women, especially younger women in their 20s, that get pissed. He hangs out with his friend all the time, or vice versa.
That could go both ways too.
Yeah, like she's out with her friend all the time. I don't even like her friend. Her friend's this, right? So if that's the jealousy, and going back to that gay story, right, where I said that she accused him of one of his good friends of them being gay, and he's like, whoa, that's not true. Mm-hmm. Right? And she goes on and on about it. What if she put that on Facebook? What if she aired that out to friends? Mm-hmm. What if she did that? That would be a tipping point, probably, where you're like, okay, I'm done. You took it too far, hon.
You reached the level.
I didn't know you can go there. But the thing is, right?
That's insane. Yeah.
A lot of times jealousy is someone like, they do it for different reasons, but it's controlling and it's insecure. Mm. As Sam Lujan just mentioned, fear and insecurity turned into an accusation. Right. Accusations can be true. And this is where someone goes, they think, oh, it's my intuition. It's my intuition. Intuition's true, but it can be biased.
Mm-hmm. And oftentimes wrong.
It can be wrong also. Yeah, it could be what you want to believe. Right. So know what your tipping point is. Are you finding yourself explaining yourself when you did nothing wrong on your moral compass? This is a great fucking question. If you have a friend or family member in a jealous partner relationship, are you finding yourself explaining yourself when you did nothing wrong on your moral compass?
And are you having to do that over and over again?
Right. Like you're like, no, I'm with my friends. No, I actually didn't do that. It's like, because every time you have to explain yourself, you're in their frame. They're controlling the conversation. It's like you're at a table with detectives and they're like, you know, you done gone and fucked up. That's the great, remember that movie Menace to Society?
Yeah.
You know, like everything the guy's saying, you know you done fucked up. And the guy's like, it's the same thing with when you're in a situation, it's like, no. And then you're like, I'm getting story checked for a story that never happened.
Right. How do I get away from this? Like, how do I prove myself?
Tell me how Santa Claus came down the chimney again. Right? Santa Claus didn't come down the chimney, hon. Right? It's like, if you're doing that, here's the crazy part. If you interact in that, now they have a way to check you where they get control whenever they want it. They can throw out some kind of accusation that's kind of wild. They can get your attention, and then you're answering to them. And so when you stop and you go, you know what? It's up to you what you want to believe. I told you the truth. Sit on that. And they're like, well, I'm just leaving. Go ahead and leave. That you got to stay strong, or else you're setting up the precedent
for you to be controlled, basically.
Yeah, well, the term's more like you're in their frame. So whenever you're in someone's frame, you're answering the questions. They're controlling the conversation. You're explaining yourself to them. There's nothing worse than explaining yourself when you did nothing wrong. Now, what makes someone look more guilty? Explaining yourself.
Right.
Because like, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you were like, no, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It's like, I didn't take the cookies from the cookie jar, Mom. It's like, are you sure?
All right.
I didn't ask you. Like the minute you explain, it's almost like, yeah, now I know. Now I know. Right? So you can say, look, that wasn't my intention. Look, I'm telling you the truth right now. That's up to you to believe or not. Don't explain yourself too much. Now, if there's something to it where you have to explain a part of it, that's fine. But when they start putting an accusation on top of your explanation, stop. Now, this is a great question. By the way, these are great questions. I put them together, so I'm going to put a pat on the back. B had no part in this.
Very good. Very good.
But this is where it all starts. What's the gain from her jealousy? Or him? Sorry for writing she or he, right? What does she get from it? Great question. I just gave you one example. For that moment where you're explaining yourself, control. Yeah. If I want to get my way, perhaps when they get jealous, it encourages you to do what they say or listen to them or be under them. So another situation where I had a client where her boyfriend had this big issue with, they'd go out, she wears tight clothing, she has a nice backside, she has a nice front side, and he's pissed because other guys are checking her out, and he's blaming her for wearing those kind of clothes and asked her to start wearing sweatpants that are baggy.
Sweatpants?
Yeah. Right? And she's like, what do you want me to do? This is how you met me? Like, guys are going to check me out, right? Like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, you're doing it, like, look at these guys. I hate going out with you. He doesn't realize that it's all his insecurity. He thinks she's doing something wrong. That's a story that's created. He also thinks the guys checking her out are doing something wrong. They're just being guys. Right. Yeah, there's some pig dudes out there. There's some pervs. There's some wandering eyes. I think women check out guys too. They're just more discreet, probably. But
it happens,
right?
Yeah.
So he thinks. So what does he get from that though? If they go out to dinner, and he's like, God, these guys are checking you out. Da, da, da. What does he get from that?
I think he's just trying to nip it in the bud, you know?
To me, it sounds like he's trying to make her feel guilty about getting checked out.
Right.
So then
that's a form of control, right?
A form of control. Yeah. So you feel guilty that these guys are checking you out, even though it's not, and you're wearing this tight clothing. So you're bringing it on. But the question is this jealousy warranted? Have you actually crossed a line? If that's how your partner met you and you dress that way, then they have no right. Because that's how you came pre-packed, right? If you're going out in a thong and a bra and a pair of sneakers, right, and it's not your nature to do so, yeah, okay, what's going on here? Totally out of character, right?
Like what happened?
Now, this is where these questions are really good. What's the gain from the jealousy? Control, a guilt net, you answering to me, and then also feeding your insecurity. Like, every time you answer to my jealousy, you reassure me that I have you in check. You reassure me that
I'm right, like, about this.
Not just that I'm right, but also that, yeah, it's okay today. And they create all these little situations. Like I said, you got to come back to that first question. Is the jealousy warranted? Like, have you done something wrong on your moral compass? Does that make sense? All right, we got the great Rye Flint on deck with a howdy. I didn't know that was Australian.
Howdy. Sam
Lujan, who I said her name correct. Thank you. Like I said, I have a friend with the same last name. A good friend. I believe that name. I believe Lujan is French. Lujan. And the great roller girl who keeps on rolling. So we do have a story on deck. We have 6. Let me know if you have any questions. I would be willing to invite one of you to come on a call if you want to unpack a breakup story. You don't necessarily need to show the video, but I will send the invite link right now. Put that up. There you go. I'm not sure. I'm Mexican, but French is cool too. Are you sure you're Mexican? There might be a little bit of French in the background. No, I'm just... A lot of people... You know what's interesting about Mexico? Is you know how Mexico has some great beers? This is a totally random thing off the topic on the live stream.
Yeah, okay.
Sam, I don't know if you've been on my live stream, but sometimes I get off topic. But
okay,
it's kind of interesting that like Dos Equis, I'm not even going to say Corona, but like Modelo, great. Yeah. Souls are great.
Soul. I used to like Soul.
Yeah, Souls.
It's been a while.
Soul, which means sun, right? In Spanish.
I don't know, but
you don't know any Spanish being from California? It's like our second language.
I know, it's been a long time.
All right, so a lot of these beers started out with Germans that came to Mexico, had some roots, and they started the beer companies. It's kind of interesting, huh? So you have some immigrants in the background there, and of course some Spaniards and whatnot. But you don't know if there's any French there. This is my first time. My boyfriend watches you and recommends you highly. Soul means sun, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Sam. Is that Eduardo Martinez? Is that who it is? My good buddy? Maybe it's someone else. All right, so we got the story on deck. Hey, coach, I've got a situationship. So this is kind of funny because we just titled one of our videos situationship, which is kind of a good way to put things, right? When you have a situation in a relationship.
So this is somebody that's watched it. All right.
Well, a situationship, it's not a breakup.
No.
And it's kind of cool because we get away from that. It's complicated. Doesn't answer it. It's really complicated, which is a broad term for we have problems and we lack clear roles, right? But a situationship says, here's my situation. I kind of like that. I've been living with my girlfriend for a year now. She's great on so many levels. She treats me well. She cooks for me. She cleans the home. We have great intimacy. She really does love me. Okay, we can stop there. You can just drop the mic and leave. No, this is a channel for breakups, and like everyone's gonna go, "What's the problem, man?
What are we doing here?"
Now, here's the downside. Dun dun. Okay. She can be clingy, and she gets jealous. The clinginess is just something I adapted to, but really it can be annoying. I'm not an attention or affection seeker the way she is. At this point in my life, I don't mind it. And like I said, I've adapted to it and I actually like it in small doses. All right, so this is a case where that's an issue, but you can live with it. So
you like the attention, you just want to control it.
Right, but on the flip side, here's the thing. It's easier to deal with something you don't like when you have 5 things you do like. So that's a trade-off, right? So when he says, she treats me well, she cooks for me, she cleans for me, she has great, like it's easier to let go of like, oh, there's just one thing. Right. And he's also saying at this point in my life, I'm okay with it. Right. So that's a really good point in the sense that he's not dug in on the fact that, oh, I don't like this as a deal breaker. This is why a lot of people break up, by the way, is they find one thing because we like parts of people. Same with friends. It's like, I really don't like this about my friend, but I like this, this, and this. Usually it's not like, and someone will say like, oh no, it's, there's certain things you don't like. And you overlook them because there's more that you like than you don't like, and it's the important things.
Your hierarchy.
Right. So that being said, that's a really good point that he makes. Like that's an issue, but also clinginess kind of goes hand in hand with jealousy. Usually individuals that are clingy will be jealous. So he writes, just now I've always known there's a jealousy issue with her, but sometimes she just creates these stories that just aren't true. So this is something I mentioned in the beginning of this about the stories. I just recently bought some apples at a market and they were a really good price. So I got a half dozen extra and gave them to the neighbors who just moved in. The neighbors are a couple with 2 kids and a nanny. We've met them all. They've been nice. My girlfriend doesn't like them and finds the situation to be a bad one, as the girl is much younger than the man. He's 40 and the girlfriend is 20 something. And the kids are from another mom. All right, so I've had good interactions with all of them and just got to know them better at a couple neighborhood barbecues. So giving them some apples wasn't a big deal to me. When I told my girlfriend, she asked immediately, who did you give them to? As if I had given them to someone individually. I said, it's for the whole family, and the apples were cheap and good ones. And she said some things under her breath, but nothing serious. Then 2 hours later, I get this text telling me that I should give all the neighbors gifts and those people are pathetic. So this is a classic story that's been created. She added more to that, and it was just super over the top for the situation. A weekend before this, she accused me of not being honest when I was out with my friends, that she had checked and saw that a friend I was with had his car at home. So she knew I wasn't with that friend. I immediately took a photo of that friend with me and sent it. She replied, good, and it was over. But I always used to make fun of friends that had to do things like take pictures of where they were to prove they were being good. And I've even realized it at that moment. Damn, I just did that? What is this coming to? So that's a great realization. This individual is very mindful in what he's writing. So what he's saying is a couple things here that we went over already. There's stories being created. There's a good deed that you did for neighbors that, regardless if she doesn't like them for their individual situations, I'm sure there's a lot of women out there that would go, I don't like a 40-year-old guy with a 20-something-year-old woman and they have kids out of wedlock. It's a bit judgmental, but okay. It's not a deal breaker with you and your girlfriend that she judges them in that way that you're going to break up over that.
Right.
The fact that you do an individually small good deed, like give them a few apples next door and are being neighborly with them, and she's overreacting to that, it's a little bit bizarre.
Clearly blowing something up that small, there's something else, underneath there.
Right.
Driving that.
Right. And then this is where you start to stack things. Like I said earlier, there's this other small event. So it sounds like these events, they're not big. And they're not even like, oh, I saw you talking to another woman.
No.
It's you spending time with a friend. It's you giving a gift to a neighbor. So these are pretty petty. Honestly, she checks a lot of boxes, but I know the jealousy issue isn't going away. And the part that bothers me is the extreme jealousy with assumptions. She also confronted me before and asked if I'm supporting anyone else. Currently, she doesn't work and I've been taking care of her, but she still calls me cheap. Wasn't that appropriate, huh? It's like, you're cheap, you can give me more. We'd probably need more details on what your agreement on that was. Right. So if you're going to take care of your girlfriend or your wife, that's totally fine.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah, just make sure that it's your pleasure and that you're comfortable with the amount that you're exchanging. So if you're saying like, this is what I can afford. I have another client right now that's dealing with some issues about how they're dividing money for rent. And sometimes someone's paying more, right? So someone's paying more. Do you have a real issue with that?
Are you happy to do it?
Are you happy to do it? Yeah. Or are they going to have to step up and get a better job? Like, you need to speak up in those situations, because eventually it's going to be water boiling over the pot. And keeps tabs on my spending and always makes comments that she believes I have more than I'm showing. See, that's a problem. Someone, you're telling them like, I don't have that much extra money right now. No, I don't believe you. Okay, so we have a trust issue there, but you also have this narrative where she's not listening or seeing from your point of view. Normally, I wouldn't put up with this, but she lives with me now. I believe she'd be a great mom one day. She has a great way with kids, and that's something I want. I'm not sure if she'll ever overcome these insecurities. How do I overcome this? That's a great question. I mean, in this particular case, knowing where it's coming from is one of the issues. Okay, audio is good now. Is there still a problem with the audio? I don't think so.
I'll just check.
Whenever I wipe away, there's a little bug in here. Right? All right, getting back to this story. How do I overcome this? I'm not sure if you're the one that needs to overcome this. She's going to have to meet you halfway on the bridge. So this is the thing. You're like, how do I overcome this? If you overcome this, probably that would be you giving into it and just dealing with it and just going, this is how she's going to be. I'm going to explain myself when I need to, and that's fine. I don't think anything's going to change unless you really sit down with her and you go, we're going to be done. If there's no consequence for her actions, because each time that she does this, she gets an explanation from you, so she feels validated.
So you need to give like an ultimatum?
Ultimatums never work in the sense that, that's a great question. So ultimatums are horrible for wanting to stay in the relationship.
Right. Like this is
because I call it gun to the head negotiations.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, I've done it before actually in a relationship and it ends up in a breakup. The reason you do ultimatums, is you're fed up. You want one way or the other. You're tired of the same shit.
Right.
And so it does serve a purpose. It just doesn't usually.
And the way you want it to.
Right.
You
usually
want it to be like, oh, they're gonna be I'll give in.
Your body. So like if your girlfriend's hanging out late many nights, and you're like, if you do this one more time, I'm done. And she's like, go ahead.
And you're like,
because she's like, she thinks of it like you won't do it, but also I'm not going to be forced. I'm an adult. Some would maybe go, okay, maybe, but like, it's a very impulsive way of negotiating in your relationship. But the reason you do it, you need to understand, you're doing it because you're fed up.
You've reached a point.
Yeah. You want a yes or a no, right?
And you be the decider.
You're tired of negotiating.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that that's what you want to do, but I would say that you need to develop a way. She probably needs some kind of therapy or coach where she can get into why she's doing this. If she's this good a person, where you're like, she's great on so many levels, she treats me well, she cooks for me, she might be able to come around. She just needs to be made aware of it, and you might need an outside party to make her aware of it, like a therapist or a coach, right? So if she was able to see someone else that did that, and she has to think that she's wrong. Now, you haven't mentioned in these cases if she's admitting like, I'm sorry. If she's validating the jealousy as like, that's just how relationships are, it's probably not going away.
It'll just keep rolling.
If she's like, I've known women that are like, oh, jealousy's a good thing. It shows you care. There's a limit, right? Is there a way to calm her jealousy? Not really. It sounds that she's looking for things when you're not around, or you're not showing her the utmost attention. And this goes back to a clingy individual. Clinginess comes from, I want you now, I want you to hold me, I want this. And it usually stems from being neglected when they were young in some way. And neglect doesn't have to be abuse. It could be just the loss of a loved one. It could be a dad or a mom that left when they were young.
That worked a lot, maybe.
And they might think, especially if they haven't gotten any therapy or anything, like, that's not the big deal. People like this actually go, I'm really independent. But situations, not to talk about situations will put them in a situation where he's not home or she's not home right now. They must be leaving me. They must be doing something wrong. So they're trying to get out in front of that. So a lot to unpack there. But if you go back through these questions, is the jealousy warranted? Have you actually crossed the line? For this individual, no. Doesn't sound like the jealousy is warranted. It sounds like she's fishing for things. Okay.
Like if there was really nothing behind it.
Like you went out with a friend and she's like, I saw his cars at his house, and you were like, look, we took a taxi. Mm-hmm. She should say sorry to that, but also that's not warranted jealousy. Mm-hmm. Are stories being made up that you have to answer to? Yes.
Yes, for sure.
How far does it go? Well, I mean, these aren't too bad of things. But stay tuned. I'm sure you might be sending me more in the future. What's the core of the jealousy? Sounds like she just doesn't trust you.
Mm-hmm. And why is that?
Well, that's the problem.
Right.
Now here's the thing. When I say, is the jealousy warranted?
Right.
I've had clients like, yeah, I have been cheating.
So
yeah, I am talking to a woman at work, but we haven't hooked up. Okay. Like, I haven't been jealous many times in my relationships. And I don't mean that like I'm some superior person or I've really worked on myself. I've just had that in relationships overall.
But there's been times, I'm sure.
I was just going to say that when I have been jealous, I have found it to be warranted. Mm-hmm. In other words, if I'm going to get jealous, I know there's something there, or I'm going to question it in my head, like, where's this coming from? Mm-hmm. Okay. Because I think that there is a certain level of any relationship where you are going to have some moments where you're jealous. So what was her parents' relationship like? I don't know from his story. So I'm not going to guess or assume. Does he or she admit when they are wrong? Let me go back to when I'm talking about myself not being jealous. My parents didn't have the perfect relationship. My dad was an alcoholic. There's some bad things that happened. My parents, numerous times we moved out. And this isn't to say like, oh, I had it so bad or something like that, because everyone has their own stuff.
But it just wasn't a perfect like.
But neither of them were very jealous. I never witnessed that too much. And both of them, from what I could gather, were quite loyal to the family and to other people. So that's probably why I give people the benefit of the doubt. And neither of them were clingy. And my father would be away working quite a bit, or my father would go on hunting trips and my mom would never be jealous, and vice versa, that I remember. And there was no reason for it. So that's probably why I'm a little bit more secure about that kind of thing. Whereas if you have someone, like I said, that one of their parents cheated or left when they were young, then they're going to be more like that. Does he or she admit when they are wrong and communicate they overreacted? In this particular case, you don't really elaborate on that part, so we don't see it in the story. But that's something. If someone, that's half the, like, that can go a long way. If someone's like, yeah, they're aware that they were wrong and they say sorry genuinely. That being said, if they continue to impulsively do it, it's a problem. How often does it happen? What are the accusations? So in this particular case, it seems like it's increasing. You've only been together a year and a half, and the accusations seem false because you haven't said, well, I am screwing around, or I am kind of talking to someone else. If this isn't going away, what's your tipping point? Stay tuned. Are you finding yourself explaining yourself when did nothing wrong on your moral compass? It sounds like yes.
That's a big yes.
What's the gain from her jealousy? What does she get from it? Well, it sounds like I said earlier that you have to answer to her. That you have to be in her frame. The minute she accuses you something and you explain yourself, then you give weight to the accusation. Whereas if you said, that's just not true, I'm not going to go there. I told you the truth. But every time she does it, you got to answer to her. She's in charge. All right, we got 9 on deck. Does anyone have any questions about their current situation?
Situationship.
Or relationship questions? I think that was pretty thorough, though. Mm-hmm. Great questions to consider if you're in a jealous relationship. And a lot of people think it's admirable to be jealous. They think
like it just shows you care.
A jealous person will think, there are some, I've been in relationships with girlfriends that are like, you never get jealous, you're not upset. It's like, I trust you.
Like, I want you to be jealous sometimes.
Yeah, I've had that. Yeah. I've had that sometimes. But like we talked about earlier, there's been times, no one's bulletproof to jealousy. No. The question is it warranted, or where is it coming from? if it's a way to control someone, you got to check yourself.
Mm-hmm. Am I doing this just to control them?
Or you're just paranoid.
Right.
That's just pure insecurity, that you're addicted to reaffirming, re-bringing up. And that's what's hard when you have a situation where you get jealous and you're not used to it. If you've been in a long enough relationship where something's changing in someone's behavior, where something's not right, something's different, they're starting to get texts from a guy at work and they're like, oh, it's just about work, but they're talking about the guy a lot. I had that in one relation. It's like, that's grounds to be jealous, but at the point of jealousy, accusations should be put to the side and questions should come up. And then really, if the person's evading the question rather than saying, no, I don't like them, I actually just need to work with them, and I can show you their text. Now, if it's out of character for both of you to be jealous types, then you could probably come to a solution at the end of that. But if someone wants to be right, because once someone makes an accusation, a lot of times the subconscious wants to be correct because then you look like a fool.
Like I was wrong.
It's like sometimes do exes always stay in hot and cold mixed signal behavior? Is it even worth it? Can you elaborate on your question, Brian? Sometimes people believe their jealousy stems from caring and expect that the partner associates it the same way. Then there's a question, why aren't you jealous when their partner doesn't? Right. I've been in that situation a couple times. I've also, I'm going to be honest and candid, in my 20s, I've had situations where I could see warranted jealousy, where you're flirting with a girl, not in their face.
Right.
Or you're at a stage where you start dating and you're not official yet, and they see you out, and they like, I can see where that's coming from, right? Like if they never know if they want to be together or not. All right, so associate jealousy the same way I feel. Associate jealousy, yeah. Like I said, you're allowed to be jealous. It's human.
Yeah, of course.
And there's so many things to find that you could, and you know what's funny is jealousy kind of hides for some people. If you're really critical of people, and I'm critical sometimes, I'm not perfect. It's usually there might be a hint of jealousy in there if you're really critical of someone. Not always, but sometimes. So Brian's saying, do exes always stay hot and cold? Mixed signal behavior, is it even worth it? Exes are like, breakups and exes are never going to be one size fits all. Yeah, it's like Beast tired of me saying the same things. It's never going to be. It's never going to be like, oh, this is how it always is. Okay, so that's not true. Some are just cold and some are hot. Some are, depends on the situation. Now, why would there be hot and cold mixed signal behavior? Because they're unsure. Because they haven't met someone else, and there's situations where at 8 p.m. at night, the TV show that you guys used to watch comes on. At 9 p.m. at night, this is when you used to go to bed together. I don't know. There's certain situations that are going to be more sensitive that'll make you go, oh, I wish they were here right now. And then they might have other situations where they remind themselves why they broke up with you because you were highly jealous.
Right.
So that would be hot. They're negotiating in their head why they broke up and why they miss you. And so that would be hot and cold. And that actually goes on a lot for anyone in a breakup, whether they broke up with you or you broke up with them. If there was love, if there was a pretty good relationship. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If you were a pretty good partner, there's probably less hot and cold that's valid. Like if you were good to them, if you treated them really well, but if you said mean things, called them names, abused them, hurt them, stole money, and I'm not saying this about anyone on the live stream, I'm just throwing this out here. Right. I'm saying like you just were you were extremely bad sometimes. Well, then yeah, they're going to be hot and cold. Maybe you were hot and cold in the relationship and you don't realize it. For you to realize, oh, hot and cold, that's something you're identifying in your head, because what I see in you, I see in me. It's a really good thing to look at. It's a really good thing to look at. If you want to be more mindful in your life, if you start calling someone a name or making an accusation, saying like, oh, this person's lazy. Are you a highly go-getting, ambitious, hardworking person? Or are you just saying they're lazier than I am? I had that happen in a review one time. This guy was like, he was just a superior in this job I was at, and it was like, I'm lazy, but this is too much. And I was like, right, lazy Olympics. Okay, like you're admitting that you're my superior, that you're lazy, which I don't think I'm lazy. So you're imposing on me something you believe about yourself, but you're like, I'm lazy, but you're worse. Who's that statement for? People do it in relationships too. Like, well, I mean, I drink, but you drink more. You're out of hand. Like, what? I mean, who's winning here? Like, what you're doing is you're like, and people do it all the time, and you'll see it. Like, what I see in you, I see in me. Same with when people get accusations, right? We're talking about this jealousy thing. When they're making accusations, they're perceiving what you did the way they would see it if they did it themselves. So like when he mentions giving apples next door, she looks at it like,
I would only do that if
I would only do that if I was close to someone.
Right.
You're doing it just as a brand new neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So that must mean it means more to you.
Because that's
and you're like, nah, it doesn't. I'm just being nice. Right. Do it ever stay hot or cold? I don't know what that means, Brian. Obviously, I'm not in that situation. Like, if they ever know if they want to be together or not. So it was really interesting today because I had a client that I've been working with for a while, and he's been in no contact for like 8 months. And his ex contacted him and broke no contact today. And I might make this for another show, but what was really interesting about it was that he was talking to me about recently, like, and people say this all the time. If I had to say like something that's really common is guys, especially women don't do it as much, but guys will go when they're in no contact and they don't know what's going on, right? No contact's tough, whatever. And they're like, I just wish I knew. They do this all the time. I just wish I knew if she's with someone else, I'd be fine and I can move on. And I always go, I've seen that happen, and I get an emergency call the next day, like an email, like I need to talk. Or they'll say, I just need to know she doesn't want to talk to me ever again. And then I can move on. And I'm like, careful what you wish for. Like, seriously, because it's not going to make it all better. So, because it's going to finalize the no contact even more. And now you're going to have all that. You think to yourself like, oh, it'd be great. If it's negative, it's not going to feel great because you didn't get the response you wanted or liked.
No.
So I've had this before where a guy was like that. I was like, I knew for his particular situation, she probably wasn't coming back. She had moved to another country. They weren't getting along for 6 months. They were sleeping in separate rooms, and like no contact was the only alternative. Like she wasn't gonna move back over from the other country she was in and all these other things. But he kept digging, and then finally he dug. And then on one of her apps, she had a picture with another guy. Emergency email. Can I talk immediately? He was like shaking, right? I'm like, all right. And this is what he said he wanted. Like, either way, at least I'll know. It's like,
well,
someone just recently asked me that too. And this is ironic. The guy was just saying, I just want to know. I just want to know. And I said, or no. I just want to know. Or someone says, I said, why don't you go with, I don't want to know? How can you frame it to, I don't want to know? I think that's when you get into, I just don't know. This is a big one. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. Or they go, I know they're sleeping with someone else. I know they're sleeping with someone else. No, you don't. Get to a point where you're like, I don't want to know. And you know what the biggest thing you can do by that? Please, anyone listening to this live stream that's
going through it.
The number one thing that will trigger you every time, that'll just give you like a little inkling of like, oh, I think I know what they're up to. Social media. Like you just have to get off it. You just have to get off it for like 30 days and give yourself a break, or you're gonna go nuts. Period. So getting back to this guy, 8 months in, a day after we just had a coaching session and talked about what we were just talking about, and he was saying, hey, do you ever think, like, I've been thinking about her so much that they think about you as much as you think about them? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I think there's something to that. There's some quantum physics to it. I don't get into detail about it, but yeah, I think when you're thinking about someone else, they're thinking about you, not always, but a lot of the time. And that's why sometimes when you get a phone call and you're like, oh, I was just thinking about Carrie. I was just thinking about Alex. I was just thinking about my friend.
How random that they...
Does that happen? It happens. Right? So, like, can there be some truth to that? Sure. How do we measure it? I don't know. I'm not a data analyst. All right? I'm not going to do any research on it. But the next day he got the text and he hit me up with an emergency call. Like, we need to talk right away. And the email, maybe I'll share it in a different one. I'll ask him first because he's pretty cool. He wouldn't probably mind if I shared it. But it's actually not his words, it's her words. So maybe that's but I showed B it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It did make him feel better.
Yeah. She got down to it, I'll say that.
It did make him feel better. It was like 3-4 paragraphs. It was that she still cares about him, but she's still angry at him. She's not gonna forgive him. He did some bad things, right? Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, he cheated, he admitted it, and so like she has a reason to be angry. But my point is sometimes when you're out of the breakup, you're like, oh, I just want to talk to him. I just told him, you got all the clarity of what's going on now. You know exactly where she's thinking, you know where she's feeling. I just told you.
Crystal.
You got what you wanted.
Right.
From 8 months of nothing to now, you know where she stands, you know how she feels.
Yep.
Does it make you feel better? He was actually upset. He wanted to explain himself. So it doesn't, people always go, oh yeah, like once I talk to him or once I know there was someone else, I'll feel better. No, but you can, like, I'm always going to come back to this too. You can go with everything. All right, now that you found out, here's the positive. You know now. She originally said that she was reminded of him in a good moment. Mm-hmm. Like she had seen a house that he used to live at, mm-hmm. and she remembered these good moments, but she still feels cold to him. And then she just like negative. And I told him, look, she seems like the way it was written, she still cares. She still
definitely cares.
Has feelings.
Yeah. She expressed it.
But if there was ever a chance, he would have to walk on broken glass. Not eggshells. Now that's the interesting thing. Sometimes when the guy or the woman did something wrong, especially guys, because guys are a little bit different. It's like guys are less likely to want you to walk on glass. It's more like, can we hook up again?
Can we just get back to what we were doing before?
Can we sleep together?
Yeah.
Right? So he got his clarity and he's upset about it. And I was like, you can call her, you can hash it out. But it sounds like what you did won't be let go of. It's crystallized.
Right.
So it's always going to come up. It's a scar. But now you know. And now you were just saying, if I know, I can just move on. My point is,
it doesn't always end the way you were thinking.
Right. And someone will be like, oh, that's how I am. It's like, usually if you find out you're not being honest with yourself, that's why it's good to talk to myself or someone else out there so I can be honest with you. I'm still mad at you 8 months later. Just thought I'd let you know so you can suffer. Nah, Brian, it wasn't like that. It was more like, I miss you. I care about you. I love you in a weird way. Mm-hmm. She mentioned some moments that were really good, but he actually cheated and lied to her and then told her the truth. But it was a very elaborate lie and cheating. So
it hurt a little.
So she was explaining to him how she misses him and thinks about him, but she'll know that she can never come back because of that. Now, one part I didn't add to it, Brian, like 3 months, maybe 3 weeks ago or a month ago, he sent a text and she didn't reply. Like, hey, how are you?
Okay, so he sent one. Yeah. Okay.
And here's the thing. Think about it like this, Brian. Human beings in relationships, their feelings change in a situation. So let's say you're hanging out with your girl on the weekend and you had a rough week at work and you just want to watch movies and hang out and just be lazy because you worked your butt off all week, right?
To relax.
Yeah. And she's like, I want to go out this weekend. I want to go. My friend's having a party and I want to go there. And you don't really want to go.
That's like the furthest thing from what
you just want to chill.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you know what? I'll go. Fine. I told you last week I'd go. And then you end up like, while you're there, because you're tired, you don't want to be there. You end up being a jerk. You say something rude to a friend. You act up in the car. And then now you're not talking for a day. I can't believe you said that to my friend. I'm just making stuff up, right? But this is the kind of stuff that happens. That's just one situation that's hot and cold in your relationship, right? It's funny right now, there's a client of mine that they're a couple. They got back together. They're having problems again.
Same problems?
Very similar.
Similar? Yeah, okay.
But their problems, here's the interesting thing. A lot of times it's like people think, oh, this isn't normal. Actually, it's very normal to be in a long-term relationship and have some problems. Have some things you don't fucking like and are always going to bother you. It's like you've talked about it before, B. Someone that's on the phone all the time. That's a big problem. I don't know how you fix that. Like if you told me like, hey, stop using your phone so much. I think it's an addiction.
It's 100% an addiction.
Right?
Yeah.
I look at my phone more than I ever did before, but not very often compared to the average bear, right? Now, there's some people like, you go to a restaurant or a cafe, everyone's on their phone now. Right?
Oh, if you look and they're not talking to
It's like Corey Wayne talks about this where he's like, oh, look at all these couples that are checked out. They're on their phones. I remember like 8 or 9 years ago, it was the first time I witnessed it. And I was in Chiang Mai at the time. And it was like a nice restaurant. And this lady was sitting at the head of the table. She was kind of the queen bee, if you will, like the leader of the group. And I believe it was her husband or her partner, however we want to phrase that. And maybe 2 other couples. So like 6 people total. And I remember that was the first time I saw someone like this, like while they were interacting. But she would conversate and she would come back to her phone.
Yeah.
And that was, like I said, 9 years ago, it just wasn't that common. And I remember looking over like, God, she's not even paying attention to like what everyone's talking about. Right. Now, I would say that you're in the minority if someone's not on the phone as a couple or a single person in a restaurant and so I just think that, it's the modern day cigarette.
Yep.
Right? Like we didn't grow up in a generation. B and I are both from California. The Bay Area where I grew up, a lot of people didn't smoke. I'd say that it was just starting like
to get phased out a bit. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or they were
like in high school, I didn't have a lot of friends that smoked cigarettes.
No.
Like
it was almost like cool to like go try to have a cigarette, here and there.
But it's just not as common.
No.
So, like I said, that's an addiction like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, I think was way more prevalent. Right? Yeah. So the phone thing now is just, there's probably going to be a time, there's going to be social media rehab. There's going to be.
I think they have it at some. I think
there's going to be something for it because there's people that are out of hand with it. So that's one of those ones. Like I said, I don't know the answer. If you have a girlfriend that's on social media all the time, it's something that you either adapt to or deal with, or maybe negotiate.
Right.
Hey, can you put your phone away for this moment? But
if you don't think it's a problem, it's going to be really hard.
Well, some people use it for work. It's like a client of mine just was telling me that he just got intimate with his girl that he was seeing. I don't think they're together. And he's like, right when we finished, I just grabbed my phone from the dresser and she got really pissed off. And I'm like, there's probably a lot of people that do that. And he uses his phone for work. He
has to.
Yeah.
He has to be on his phone.
Yeah. So there's certain things that you got to do your trade-offs. I'm still, Sounds like more clarity of a situation from both ends, more like closing a chapter. Sometimes you have to step away for a bit to realize what you really went through. That's a great line, Sam Lujan.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's exactly actually what I felt like. It was like what she wrote was very detailed, edited, and her feelings, and she took time with it.
You definitely felt there was some time spent on this.
Maybe that was her moment of realization and clarity that she felt the need to give that explanation to him. Wow. Sounds like we need to have you on the show, Sam. That's a great statement. I agree with that. That's, and you're right. Sometimes you need time away 8 months later.
Right, because you said that he texted her like 3 weeks prior.
I think so.
Something
2 or
like
3
that,
weeks,
right?
maybe a month ago.
But she was probably sitting on that for a little while. Like she was probably, thinking about a lot
But
of
here's
stuff.
the thing, Sam Lujan. For her to even send the message, she still has feelings. She still has feelings. She's conflicted by that. Right. But I told him, she's still hurt. And their breakup, just like I always keep saying, every breakup's different. She was very hurt. People want you to feel what they feel. If you got back together, she's going to find a way to try to hurt you a little bit. Think about it like this. If you got really hurt, like blatantly hurt, maybe you're the type of person, because you're a nice guy, you're like, oh, I'll just let it go. But there would be a part of you deep down that are like,
I want them to feel
a little revenge, or
sure.
like, and there's a line, right? But like, and it can go away in 5 years, 6 years, especially if you were able to pivot into a better relationship. The people that are the most bitter are the people that go down after a breakup rather than equal or higher. It's like I'm putting together this new protocol for a breakup where you can just follow this list of rules and go through it, right? And the reason I'm doing that is because you need some kind of structure. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work, but it's going to add all those things. And some people like to commit to a protocol for a month. And it's going to be interesting because I don't know how many people can commit to the things I'm going to say. I don't know how they're going to do it. But the ones that do, it would help you. But at the core of it, right? Because this is what's interesting about it, B. When I'm writing out this protocol, this is what's hard. You know what quote unquote sells or gets views. Just tell me how to get my ex back. Now, if you do this protocol, how am I going to get you to do it if I can't? Because people will tell me sometimes in emails, hey man, is it really going to work? Is it really going to work what you tell me to do to get them back? You know what the golden spot to be at? The place you want to get at, number one, first and foremost. And I'm not going to say work on yourself, find your purpose. I'm not going to say that broad, overused term. Those are good things, or let it go. These are just broad generalizations, good words, but like, what does that even mean right now when you're going through it? Just let it go. You'll meet someone else, right? The best place to be at post breakup, and you're not going to get there right away. I'm not saying but the ultimate goal is, I want B to guess. Anyone guess?
If you don't care, right?
You don't care anymore about them?
Like
you don't care if they call you back or not?
Doesn't matter.
You're indifferent. All right, that's one. Have a different answer. Good effort. A for effort. Indifferent. Yeah? Because indifferent is, if they did come back, you're probably at your best, right?
Sure.
You're indifferent if they come back or don't. Okay? Anyone else on the chat that wants to throw in, please do it fast. Like I said before, if anyone wants to ask questions about their individual relationship, breakup, or anything else, chime in. Don't be shy. So he says indifferent. What would I say? What would I say is the ultimate goal? If you're stuck on, I just want her back, I want her back. Okay, that's your goal. All right, I can live with that. But let me add a alternative to that. This is what I've liked to look at things. If I can't have this, what's the alternative? So you like B, you drink coffee in the morning. I drink coffee in the morning. I'm not a coffee addict. I have one. You have one. Yeah. If you couldn't drink your coffee, what would be the alternative?
Energy drink? I don't know.
You have an alternative, but you'd prefer coffee.
Yeah.
So it's if you couldn't get coffee and you had your energy drink, it's not bad.
Not bad.
It's not like you're going to be frantic. Like, how can we create an alternative to getting your ex back that's actually something that you're like, that'd be nice. No, I just want her back. I just want my coffee. Like, no, can we get an alternative?
Let's get another.
What would be the alternative thing?
New relationship. Being okay with being, single.
I would say this. This is what I'm going to roll with. We got 11 on deck. Thanks for chiming in, guys. Maybe you guys are just slow on the sticks here. Right? If you can get to a place, and I'll tell you what, in a bad breakup, it's a hard place to get to, but it's a good milestone. Okay, the great Sam Lujan's chimed in. I think you have to ask yourself what stopped you from getting what you wanted before, and what differences have you made that would lead you into an alternative. Wow.
So really breaking it down. Yeah.
Let me read that one more time. I think you have to ask yourself what stopped you from getting what you wanted before. What do you mean what you wanted before? Like in the relationship? Can you elaborate? And what difference have you made that would lead you into an alternative? So my alternative to get, like, what I would say at the core of the breakup protocol I would build, I would say to get your ex back, or to get someone back that's equal or higher value. Now, I feel like maybe someone goes, what? It's like, because you got to think, why are you wanting your ex back so much? Because a lot of times you think, I'll never be able to get one like that again.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
And what I'm going to say is, yeah, that's absolutely true, because there's only one person with those fingerprints, those thoughts, those experiences. But what if I told you, if you go through my protocol, you might be able to get someone equal or higher value. Now, identifying, and when I say equal or higher value, I'm saying to you. It's like,
whatever that means to you.
Whatever that means to you. So in this protocol, I would actually ask you to write out what would be a high value to you. So you can get away from all this rhetoric online. High value man.
This has to be what a high value man is.
High value woman. She's a high value woman. It's like, what? Oh, 6 figures, this, that. According to who? You? Like, how do we gauge kindness? You're laughing right now because it's so true, right?
It's true, yeah.
Like, how about, like, how kind is she? Can we gauge that in the high value? How generous or thoughtful are those things that are high value?
High value.
This is just some imposed value system that a bunch of YouTubers have copied each other. But what if you came up with your own value system where you're like, actually, I really want a blonde. Be detailed. I don't know. I don't know what you want. What's high value to you? Because this is what I've known in my life. Sometimes I'm like, that's what's high value to you, right? I've had friends be like, that's what's high value to you, right? So that would be your goal. And now if you said, oh, I just want them back. But isn't that a great alternative rather than me just saying, if you work on yourself? What if you can get to a point where you believe? Because to me, the people that really do well post-breakup are the people that believe they can do equal or better. They believe they have options. When you're like, oh, this person monkey branch. Sometimes it's out of loneliness. Sometimes it's pitiful. Sometimes that's just the way they handle things. They just want some kind of affection. And sometimes they're a good catch.
Yeah.
They have options.
Right.
They believe in themselves. They have other people of equal or higher value to them. So to me, once you get to the point where you believe I can get equal or higher value, that's when you'll be indifferent to your ex more. And then if your ex comes back, the great thing about that is you're not focused on them, which is the biggest problem. Because when they come back, if you're focused on them too much, you're going to scare them away. And with all that process, doing some work on yourself, doing some individual things, finding out about yourself, taking advantage of being single again. Great point. Thanks, Rye Flint. Wow, she just came on deck. She just throws a true.
She could be working.
Mic drop. Thank you. I got it confirmed. This is going to be a good protocol. Now I wanted to make a whole nother video about this. I don't want to waste this on a late group here, but maybe we can discuss it now. Riflin says I'm working. All right.
I knew it. I told you.
I believe you. Keep it short then, Riflin. I don't want you to drive and text. Okay. It's one of my pet peeves with people. Do you drive and text? Tell the truth.
I have. Yeah, but I
Jeez,
rarely
man, one of those. Have you ever watched 7 Pounds?
Yeah, I have. With Will Smith?
I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay.
I'm not going to say.
All right.
It's
You've
one of the-
convinced me. I'm done. No more.
Isn't that one of the... Brian Union says, well, hell. Why well, hell? Because it's true, huh, Brian? You're like, nah, I don't want to hear that, man. I just want my ex back. 7 Pounds is like a top 10. I mean,
That's a great movie, actually, but it's been a while.
that's a great movie.
Yeah.
That was one of those movies.
They have different storylines, right? Going. Yeah.
That's just an epitome of a movie that you're like, wow. Your life can change that quick.
Right.
Your life can change exactly about well, exactly. LLL. I just want my ex back. So let's just talk about this for a minute. This protocol I'm talking about, where I'm like 12, 13 steps. If I positioned it and I was like, this is how you get your ex back. I have trouble with that because in my head, I'm like,
This isn't.
a lot of times there's no guarantee and your ex left for reasons that are different and you don't even know them all. But if you're going to embrace that protocol. Now, Brian Unions, I like that you're being honest. You're like, well, hell, I don't want someone equal or higher value. I just want my ex back. So does that mean like if I offered you a protocol and I said, hey, look, this is to get your ex back or it's to get someone equal or higher value, would you be like, nah, dude, I just want to know how to get my ex back? Right? Now, what I have to do is I have to go, all right, then keep pursuing what you're pursuing. But I think you have to be aware of alternatives. I think this is where we get mixed up. It's like I said before. Think about this. There's girlfriend, boyfriend, there's fiance, and there's marriage. What's the alternative? 4-year sex contract.
Yes, contract. Yeah.
That's going to be that's on my list also.
Right.
I just got to talk to a lawyer first. I've talked about it on live streams before and someone's like, that'll never work. It's like, maybe not for you. I'm not saying I don't even know how much I would use it, but isn't it an alternative to making a commitment that's outside of boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage? I just think that that's a pretty big jump. It's a pretty big jump depending on where you're at in the world too and how many assets you have. That's a big deal for you, right? But like, what if there could be something more detailed, more committed in between? And here's what I'm saying. Not right for everyone. Maybe someone that's girlfriend, boyfriend goes, oh, that 4-year sex contract, that's ridiculous. I would rather get married. At least it makes your decision to get married easier. Alternatives, resources. This is something I've really learned, that therapy at its best,
Giving you options.
resources.
Right.
Like you have more resources than you think.
Right. Yeah.
Right? You have more resources than you think. People have less resources now because they just go to the internet and look for answers. Church or religion was a resource for people to calm down, to find solace. It wasn't just, there's some bad priests and leaders out there that manipulated people out of money and what they're doing, but just the act of walking into a church that's very calm and soothing, that's a resource for some people, right? I know I have to find an alternative. Honestly, all signs point to it. It's just accepting the fact that she's moving on, or at least making an effort to. No, all right. So here's a great one, Brian. So this is how I'm going to, thanks for being vulnerable about that. It's just accepting the fact that she's moving on. You don't need to accept this fact that she's moving on. You could do this as an alternative. I don't even want to know. I don't want to know if she's moving on or not. I don't want any information about her. That's an alternative to, I have to accept that she's moving on.
That's the indifferent part. Right?
So also, making an effort or saying I have to most human beings gets pushed back, because I don't like to tell them, like someone's like, you have to go do this. It's like, huh? You have to. Even if someone said, hey, B, when you use my toilet, you have to flush, okay? You'd go, I know, right? Okay. You don't have to tell me that. Because I have to is actually very heavy on your subconscious. So, like I said, in an alternative, if you can find an alternative narrative where you go, I don't need to accept that she's moving on. I don't know if she's moving on or not, but in the meantime, I'm going to follow this protocol for 30 days. This protocol that I'm putting together. And then you could say, if I can't get her back, is it possible for me to build myself up to meet someone equal or higher value? Now, in order to do that, you're going to make yourself a better catch for if she did come back.
Sure.
So it's all a bonus, right? So are you interested in the protocol? Dun, dun, dun. Let's just stop. You know what was interesting? I was watching Jordan Peterson yesterday, and he's interviewing one of those mob bosses. It was a pretty good interview. And weird thing that Jordan Peterson does, I've never seen someone do this. He asks 3 questions or 4 questions. Like and then let me ask you, like the guy's like, I was in solitude confinement for 29 months. And you watch the guy, and he's got this scowl the whole time. He's a mobster. Yeah. I forgot which one it is. He's been on a few different shows. He's kind of yoked. And Jordan Peterson's like, let me ask you. Totally different. He goes, what was it like being in solitude confinement? What were you thinking when your wife came to visit you? And finally, what were you thinking of doing next? And what were you reading while you were in there? I was like, I'm listening to the interview. I'm like, can you ask him one question at a time? I'm uncomfortable listening to this. Every time he would do it too. And then what was weird yesterday, it just made me think right now, you're watching this like thing and then it stopped and it had an ad, but it wasn't an ad for YouTube. It was like placed in the video.
Oh, it was like on the video.
And it was for a church thing, which surprised me that he was associated with prayer and church, but it was product placed while they were talking about how this guy read the Bible and all the religious books because he had been in jail for many years, and they placed it right at that moment, which was kind of interesting. It was like product placed. Right. It's like I just thought of that now. Well, here's my protocol for breakups. Right. People do that too, right? Hold on. Now we've gotten.
I'll put something together, throw it in the after.
But it's kind of interesting because indifference, absolutely. But I would also say believing. When you get to that point where you believe I can get someone else, and I think it's important to believe that you can get someone equal or higher value to you, because I think that's a narrative that goes through your head that you're not going to meet someone else that good at cooking, that good at taking care of you, that good at listening to your crap, Yeah. And then when you open up to that alternative, then you're open to dating, you're open to going out again. And then the ironic thing is if they came back around again, you think waiting around for them would be admirable. It's unattractive.
Because you're in the same spot that you were. You didn't move.
And so I'm saying if you did these things that I'm talking about, if you can't believe, because I know at one point I had one breakup that was hard in that sense. That was one of the things in my head for a point was all the unique things that girlfriend did or great or how good looking she was, like that. And I had a limited belief. And here's the thing. My next girlfriend was better. Like in a lot of ways.
If you would have known.
I'm saying that you got
easier. Yeah.
Now, if you did something really wrong, then you obviously needed to work on that. But if you can get to that point where you believe that you can find someone equal higher value, this is where people they roll out of breakups really easy because they do believe that. And it doesn't make sense, right? Sure. They're just good looking. Could be. Most people actually that look their best, they put work into it. They don't just, roll out of bed like that. Pursuit of Happiness is 7 pounds, very different, but equally heavy, I feel. It was a great, great movie. was Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
And I actually remember it was one of those times where I watched Slumdog Millionaire and 7 Pounds on the same night for the first time.
Oh, wow. 2 great movies.
Changed my life. Those are good movies and
Yeah.
they're feel-good stories, right?
Yeah.
Big time.
Mhm.
That would be a part of the breakup protocol, by the way. Controlling your content. It's a good one, huh?
That's a great one.
It is, dude.
Mhm.
It is. It's actually really underrated. And the only way I can help with something like this is because B knows he's in the background sometimes when I'm doing coaching, right?
Right.
Like, you know what I talk about. So I know like what comes up over and over again. And I could easily say, hey, Trudy, just stop going on social media or stop doing this. You're going to keep doing it. But if you were like, just like when you do a fast or a diet and there's a protocol, you're like, all right, for 30 days, I'm not going to do any social media and I'm only going to control my content to watch this, this, and this. It actually will really help you because what's happening every time someone watches 15 videos, your attention goes. And you're like, this guy just told me that if I write a letter, I can get her back in a day. I like the way that sounds. Someone else told me, don't ever write letters. Oh shit, what should I do now? Now you're like this.
Getting pulled in 15 different directions. Yeah.
Now you're like this. And then I get someone that comes to me and they go, well, I just watched this. I'm like, all right, what happened to you? What's your story? Did any of those people hear your actual story? No. B's tired of hearing it. He's done. He's like, that's enough. I'm sick of it.
Don't have accusations. Okay. You don't know.
So what, I mean,
You don't know.
it's like saying you are what you eat. Well, it's like saying that you're the, I don't know if I like the way that one sounds, but I understand what you mean.
Mhm.
I understand what you, Sam Lujan.
Yeah, you regurgitate kind of like what you're watching all the time. Sure.
You're the average of your 5 best friends. I've heard that many times and I didn't realize how true it is, or the 5 people you hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people don't hang out with as many people as they used to because they watch content more.
Makes sense.
Like, think about it like this. If you didn't have the phone, you didn't have content in your phone, you'd be more social at a restaurant.
Yeah, because you need that social
right?
aspect, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when I was younger or a kid, like we wouldn't be on our phones. We'd be talking at the lunch table, right? At least I would be. You still can be attentive, engaged if you're smoking a cigarette. It's only hand to mouth action as opposed to distracting your mind. Okay, good point, Trudy Short. I love that when I said that. When I said, I just want my ex back. I don't want equal or higher. Well, hell, no. It's like, I'm going to go to another channel, man. To have someone else on another channel. Brian's like, go to another channel and someone else will be like, here's what you need to do, man.
Here's what's going to work.
Just let it go. Nine on deck. Anyone else have any closing questions? The famous last words hit. Keep the ball rolling. The indifferent feeling, huh? That's the ultimate.
You're good. You're in a good spot. If it goes one way, you're good. If it goes the other way, it's okay. We're good.
Is it that to be indifferent to your ex though? Is that I think that's takes more time than when you get to equal or higher value.
If you have somebody on deck that's equal or higher, yeah.
That'll get you indifferent pretty quick, right?
That'll get you indifferent really quick.
I just feel like when I look back, when someone's like, people will be like, when's it end?
When are the feelings?
Yeah, like when am I going to get over this? And I'm like, to be honest,
Different for everyone, I'm sure.
it is, but probably until you meet someone else.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm saying like, oh, just hook up, but like get into the process of believing and doing the things, because you don't want to have someone similar to that person.
Because then you actually see like, okay, this is possible.
My ex never said she was indifferent. Oh, she wasn't indifferent because most of the time people that have any kind of emotion towards you care. It was nice chiming in. I didn't know I was going to enjoy this much. Thank you for the good thoughts and conversations. Absolutely. Pete!
Of course.
Pete Winnick. Have you been on for a while, Pete? It's a pleasure to have you, my friend. Highly educated individual. Intelligent beyond belief. The great Pete Winnick.
Odd Carlo.
The great Norwegian who wants to live in Texas. Did you know that?
I remember that, yeah.
How does that even happen?
I don't know.
I just woke up, bud. You were on late. I got you. My relationship with some of my old friends be very strange lately. They leave me undelivered for months while I answer within a minute. Well, Odd Carlo, don't ever take it personal.
Yeah, you don't know.
Don't ever take it personal. Sometimes that old friend, when it comes to those kinds of things, they're busy. They got something else on deck.
Could be going.
They got a sick family member. Yeah. They were at a red light when they first saw your message. People do this a lot where they're like, "Oh, it's personal. It's personal." I think it'd go a long way just to call them up and just go, "Hey, man, did I miss something? Is there a reason why?" Especially if it's an old friend. Don't let it wither. People do that all the time, though. It's like, "Oh, they just want to ignore me."
Then they make up a story of.
Yeah, like maybe it's not personal. Maybe he's going through something. Pete, how are you, bud? Are you doing okay? Everything okay in life? It's been a while. It's been a few years. I think you missed it. I think I'd like to get Pete's perspective on that. Do you think the ultimate goal post-breakup is to get to a point where you are... since Pete wasn't on deck, what do you think's the ultimate goal post-breakup alternative to get my ex back? Freaking swamped with life these days. That's the goal. Refining your value, self-value. And I think, like I said, when you say self-value, I'm with you on that. But I think that, like I said, if you have the self-value, but there also, you gotta, here's the
real belief.
Here's the thing. Here's what's missing from the protocol that I'll share tomorrow. So if you really want to see the breakup protocol.
Oh, it's being shared tomorrow.
Possibly.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to take it off the classified files. But what people don't realize is if you don't get to a point where you believe that you can be with someone equal or higher value, there's probably some limited belief that's unique for you. Like I remember my first relationship, she left me or this or that, or you might have a trouble with intimacy, or you might have trouble with making a first move, or like all those things bubble up. And you get more insecure with every breakup. So what happens is like you don't want to re-enter the frame. Where you've probably had friends like this where you're like, they're pretty good out of a breakup.
Yeah, they roll.
Right? Number one, they don't have a lot of those limited beliefs related to relationships. They could have limited beliefs related to money.
Elsewhere.
They could have limited beliefs related to eating bad. It's like I've never identified with people that are like, dude, I just can't stop eating fast food. Like I've had a couple clients. It's like he has weight problems. He's upset about it. I've just never had, I don't like fast food. I don't eat it a lot. I don't eat ultra healthy. I don't have any limited beliefs that hold me in that. He's got one that says,
I can't kick it.
I can't kick it. I have to. But he also doesn't realize his environment that he lives in has a lot of fast food restaurants, and it's one of the best options for fast and cheap food. So that makes sense, right? So like that's going to be hard to kick. So there's more into it when you get into this protocol that I'm coming together with, is that's why it's harder to rotate out. It's something hidden usually that's holding you back. You do still need to process the breakup and accept what you can't fix. But at the same time, when this idea that you need to work on yourself and you need self-value, which is true, it's different answers for different people. And that's what I've realized. And that's why on YouTube, they usually give you, this is the answer, according to me. What they're saying is, this is what worked for me, or this is what I did in my own life, or this is what a couple friends did. But the reality is, Pete Winnick, Odd Carlo, Brian Union, Miss Lujan, right? There's an intricate path to who you are that's way deeper. And this protocol will help with that. The greatest value we have outside of ourselves and our expectations is someone else, regardless of the worst place we honor each other. The greatest value we have outside of ourselves and our expectations is someone else, regardless of the worst we place on each other. I think you missed a word in there. My ex seems happy as fuck since the breakup. You know what I'm going to say, Brian Union? You don't want to know. And usually you're wrong, because there's no way to assess someone's happiness completely. So think about that. Let's say Pete Winnick, I haven't heard him from a long time. Pete Winnick and me have talked before. We've done coaching sessions. I know him a little bit, right? And I'm like, oh, Pete, you seem happy, man, because he just wrote a couple nice texts. But deep down, I don't know. Happiness is fleeting. So happy, it's people are like, sometimes you run into people that are like, I'm really happy right now, because it's a period. But to think that your ex is happy afterwards, this client of mine that I just told you 8 months later, this is ironic, Brian. 8 months later, his ex broke no contact. He was just saying to me in the coaching session, she's just so happy right now. She's just hooking up with God. And I'm like, where do you get that from? By the way, you just don't even want to know, but I don't think that's true. That's just an assumption, right? Happiness is a moment. We have some happy moments. We have some bad moments. We have some, you're going to come in and out of them. Being content is good enough. And the idea that, maybe she's had some moments, Brian, where she's happy. Maybe she's had some moments where it's dark. Which ones are she going to share? That's what social media does, right? It's like,
let me share the good ones.
Now, here's the thing. There are some people that share bad ones that are pity seekers or victim seekers or things like that. That's fine. But most people, I would say majority of people, look at my food.
Right.
Okay. Am I going to tell happiness because you went to a nice restaurant? Not really. Not really. And so the reality is, like, people you work with, man, if you knew all their skeletons and their dark stuff going on, like, you never know. Like, this is what's so insightful for me is, like, the minute I go through people's histories and stuff, I got so much compassion or empathy, because it's like, oh, now I know you. Now I know why you're upset about this. Now
it's a little context.
Right. Like, you've had some history of some things to make you feel upset or hurt. Right. She shared both. That's the whole problem, Brian. That's the whole problem. Go on a 30-day fast of social media. That's what's, you just got to go off it, bud. Like, you don't want to know right now. It's not going to help you.
You want to get to that point where it doesn't bother me if she's happy or whatever.
And it starts with, it's probably the number one thing to commit to. You're not really in no contact when you check social media. It's actually worse.
Because you're getting fed maybe misleading information.
Let's say, and this is probably a bad analogy, because I don't want you to imagine this. let's say if you're away, and I was going to say jail, but I don't want that to be imagined by anyone. Let's say that you were in the military and you were away for 2 years, right? This happened to people in Vietnam and stuff. And you have your sweetheart, right? Can you imagine if there was social media around and you're in war or the military and you're like away and you had to like, even though you're not broken up and you're like, oh my God, she's having so much fun right now, it wouldn't be allowed. And then, or are you like, if she breaks up with you because of the distance, she's seeing someone else and you're watching, you have the ability to look at that. It's madness. Robin Williams always seemed happy publicly. We never know that what someone is truly feeling. And you never know. He could have been happy for a long time or long spurts. And then just in that one moment, it was so fucking dark. People always, he had problems. I don't know what his problems were. Do you have his life history of all his bad moments and events? Who knows how much work he did or not? Maybe it was one of those things. You know what happens to some people that are famous or really big? It's a hard fall. Like if you're like, look at it this way, that Andrew Huberman, who I like a lot, he was saying that one of the reasons you come down from alcohol or coffee is if you can get yourself higher with a stimulant, you're going to come down lower. Right. Makes sense. So he's like, if you combine exercise with coffee, you're going to double up you've probably done it before, like, right? Yeah. But like you might later on come down harder and be in a bad mood. Right? So if you think about it, like pro athletes, right? You always look at them, they retire, they're like 40 years old, you got millions of dollars, you're like, you got it nicked. A lot of them are really unhappy. They don't have the audience they once had, they don't have the skills, they don't get the significance, and it's a hard fall. They just lost a lot of status. I've seen it here where I live. There's a lot of retired people here. They moved to a tropical island, they live on the beach. They want to tell me about how much money they have, all this business. I don't care. We're on the same beach, having the same beer, hanging out. It doesn't overly impress me because you can't bring that with you. Right? So someone like Robin Williams, it's possible he's been so happy and so on top and so big for so long, and then maybe he had a dark moment. It's harder to deal with. He wasn't trained in it. Right? So people that have monotonous average lives that work the same job with a pension, the value in that is less ups and downs. So when you look at it and you're like, he probably was happy a lot of the times, but it probably was when he wasn't on tour or in a good movie, probably was a harder low. It's like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do? The key to avoiding that crash is learning how to emotionally regulate, find the slot between feeling elated and in the dumps. Yeah. And then finding, that's a great point, Pete. And then finding like, people that are in the dumps, it's like, do you exercise? I know that's a cliche statement, but some people don't. What are your triggers? What are things really upsetting you? And what are you using to combat it? That's why I like that tapping technique quite a bit. People don't do meditation, but there's multiple forms of meditation, like guided meditation on YouTube, those kinds of things. You want to check out my little plug here for my channel, Clean Mind Today. If you check out that channel, there's 7 or 8 guided meditations. There's 10-minute ones. Those things help. They help level you out. But yeah, happiness is fleeting, so sadness if you treat it right. Anything you got to look at your emotions like this. It's like a volume on a stereo. No one uses volume on stereos very much anymore. Right? But you know what I mean. If you can turn up your happiness and get happy about something, you can turn it down. What people do is sometimes they go, oh, I'm sad, I can't turn it back up. You can. It's like, what got you to the place that you're really sad? Even when I was in a bad breakup, or I've been in some sad times sometimes, or I've been, even recently, I've had difficult things that bother me or something, right? What am I going to do to get me out of this state? It's just a trance of being stuck, right? Doesn't mean that tomorrow the same problem isn't there, but at least I can break it up a little bit. Right? So find those things, and exercise is always the best one. By far. By far. All right, folks. I think that's good enough. I'm getting a little parched here. Great to hear from the great PW. BU. Brian Union. Trudy, always appreciated. Odd Carlo. Sam Lujan. Roller Curl. Rye Flint. Who's doing work right now? Literally.
Doing work.
What a job to listen to a live stream at the same time. Tapping, journaling, meditation, whatever works. Take care, Brian. Stay strong, buddy. Keep showing up. Just going to get there for you, bud. Sam Lujan, hope to have you back. Great insights. Highly impressed. Eduardo Martinez, tell him I said hola. Good dude. All right, folks, take care.
See you guys later.